Hi there, my name's Dennis Turner. I have an N-scale layout called Denver's Railroads, which covers the 6 railroads that serviced Denver in the 1950s and 1960s. And the railroad also covers the Rio Grande line from West Portal to Glenwood Springs, and also incorporates the Craig and Aspen branches. However, I'm not a master model railroader, and I'm no expert, so I will not be showing you any how-to scenery tricks or how to lay track or anything else of that nature. Instead, the aim of these video podcasts will be to keep you up to date with what's new and neat in N-scale, and to tell you where you can buy stuff and where you will find useful websites. Although aimed at N-scale, we will cover products like tools and scenery for all scales, and most of the websites that we will visit also cater for HO and O scale, and so they've only got to change the tabs to find the same sort of information as we'll be finding for N-scale. Obviously you could find this information out for yourselves, and that's fine, but the video podcast will put it all together for you and make it easier, particularly for those who are too lazy to look at websites every day like I do. Anyway, a little more about me and why I'm qualified to do this video podcast. I was born in London. I lived my first 20 odd years in the UK, and I've lived 50 odd years in Australia and New Zealand. I've visited the US every year since 2009, mainly to attend N-scale and NMRA conventions. I've been in N-scale since 1975, excuse me, and I've been importing from the US and the UK for just as long. Back then there was no credit cards, let alone the internet. I've imported thousands of packages in the last 43 years, and I've never lost a single parcel. The postal services in all 3 countries, 4 including New Zealand, are really that good. Although most of the stuff I've imported over the years was rolling stock and kits, and I now import all sorts of products as my layout progresses. Currently I import around a dozen parcels a month. In my trips to the US, I've met at the N-scale conventions most of the N-scale manufacturers, and I've visited the premises of Microtrains and Intermounting. Completely different, those two. Consequently, I've been responsible for most of the sponsors' donations to the N-scale conventions in Brisbane and Adelaide, and have now been asked to find sponsors for the upcoming NMRA convention on the Gold Coast. Although there'll be an emphasis on importing from the US, the video podcasts will be of equal interest to North Americans. They may also be interested in importing products like Pico Track from the UK. Welcome to the first What's New and Neat in N-scale, and here's my inspiration. Ken Patterson. You may not have watched his videos, but if you haven't, I recommend you do. Ken is a really great modeler, and he is extremely enthusiastic about the hobby. I've learned all sorts of things from his modeling, and in particular his tool tips, and it's been worthwhile. The one thing that Ken will be the first to admit is that he doesn't do N-scale very much. So a major reason for this podcast is to redress that balance and to give N-Scale its proper place in the hobby. It's interesting talking about importing. Ken's sponsor is my caboose, which is the old Caboose Hobbies. However, not a good option for importing. Not sure about N-Scale. One of the reasons is that on my iPad I can't access these boxes for all manufacturers or categories. If you click on them, you'll just end up with what's underneath, which is the create an account. It works okay on a PC. So if you want to check out their website, you need a PC. But the other two things you should be aware of is, one, his prices seem to be all manufacturer's retail from what I can see, which is not very competitive. And the worst thing is when you get to checkout, you discover that he doesn't export. He only ships within the US. So not really a very good recommendation for my caboose. In our first What's New and Neat in N-Scale podcast, we will look at model railroad retailers, their websites, their pricing and their shipping policies. A note on buying from your local hobby shop. Where I live in North Queensland, we basically don't have any hobby shops. We've got a couple of guys who are into model planes and radio controlled cars, and they keep a couple of packs of HO rail joiners, and that's about it. Woodland Scenics is into them. Woodland Scenics is everywhere in the world, but one of the outfits bought one of these Woodland Scenics display stands, sold all the products on it and didn't bother to replace them at all, and it's now an empty stand. That's the worst type of scenario, but even the better shops, although they're great for Woodland Scenics, balsa wood and evergreen plastic parts, and sometimes books, they seldom carry much else in depth. They certainly don't have up-to-date stocks of locomotives and rolling stock, etc., or of special items. The last time I was in Los Angeles, I took a 2.5-hour bus ride out to Whistle Stop in Pasadena, being the closest model retailer to LAX, expecting to find some interesting stuff, and I ended up buying Woodland Scenics and some other scenery stuff, and probably some books. I asked them for some DCC decoders I was interested in, but they didn't have them. I wanted an NMRA gauge, they didn't have that. Your local hobby shop can will always take an order and get it in from Walthers or wherever for you. But frankly, if you can do that, you might as well get it in yourself. You'd certainly get it in at a lot cheaper price. We need to support our local shops, but the support is Woodland Scenics, balsa wood and evergreen plastic parts. There's not really much else to support them for, because they don't provide much else. Now, there are probably lots of you who live in different towns and around the world who would think that I'm completely wrong, and I'm sure in isolated incidents you are. but I've just never been able to get what I wanted from the local shop, and that's why I've been importing for 40 odd years. So anyway, back to retailing. The first shop to be looked at by any N-scaler is N-Scale Supply. They're in Denver, not far from my caboose, but you won't find a retail shop. They're a warehouse. They were on an upstairs warehouse the last time I met with them, but I believe they've moved since then. The chap who runs it, Scott, has been at it for years, and he's got his business model which he sticks to, and they work really well. Their major advantage over their competition is that they pre-order. They announce before anybody else products that are coming down the pipeline. They'll take advance orders, and you can pretty much guarantee you'll get your product in 1, 2, 3, or in the case of Intermountain, 4, 5, 6 years later, when they finally get manufactured and shipped out of China. So as I say, the N-Scale Supply is the place to go if you want advanced products. I purchased from them for years, long time, but in the last year I've not wanted advanced products anymore, because most of my inventory is full. In fact, my drawer, a couple of my drawers, particularly the one for 40-foot box cars, I couldn't get another one in if I tried. So I stopped buying advanced orders and went for more just-in-time products. And so N-Scale Supply for me became uncompetitive, because the one disadvantage is that they'll only ship international by what's called United States Post Office Priority Mail. Now, Priority Mail starts at £4, or about 1.8 kilos, and you'll pay. Well, I've just had an example of buying 6 stock cars. It costs $54 if they come by priority. It was only $24 to come by first class mail. Difference between first class mail and priority is a signature. Both are trackable. You can track your shipment across the world. There is no guarantee that priority will arrive any quicker than first class. First class generally takes 21 days to get to Australia. I've known priority do it in 14, but I've also known priority to do it in 35. So it's priority's no advantage to the modeler. From the shop's point of view, they get a signature, so they've got proof of delivery. Considering that the post office never lose anything, it really is a bit academic. There's probably some insurance implication there as well. Different shops have different opinions on insurance, as you can guess. I don't think insurance is worth it, because the post office never lose anything. However, you must do what you feel comfortable. But coming back to N-Scale Supply's positives, which are many. If you go into their main site, and scroll up a little bit, you'll get to news and info and catalogue. Catalogue will give you all of their manufacturers and products, and you can go looking for specific items. But in terms of what we're trying to achieve, which is what's new and neat, we go into the news and info newsletter. Now, this site is updated daily. That doesn't mean that there will be something new every day. There's only something new when he's got something to say. But it is updated daily. and it's the first place to look for new products. Now that's always assuming that he stocks them. Pretty much everything. He didn't used to stock Broadway, but he does now. He's a Digitrax instead of a NCE supporter, so you can't get NCE from him. But just about most products are there, and in fact he's got some that some of the others haven't got. So it's quid pro quo. Now I'm going to do a search on the word announcement. I can try OU. That'll probably do. Well, okay, there's 13 matches. So if we go here, now I'm doing this just to save time, because we're interested in new products. We're not interested in arrivals of products which have been announced months ago, or new or miscellaneous stuff that's just come back into stock. So we're only interested in announcements. So the first one we have is a Thurn, which has got some new trailers. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of these items. I'm showing you where they are, and if you want more depth and detail, then you need to go to the website and look for it yourself. Okay, so the next one we have is is some center flow hoppers. Go back into, oh, we've lost it. All right. So that was that one. Then there was the center flow hoppers. Then we have a Kato with an SD70. Atlas with a modern commuter train. Beer cars. Top Gun. Then we're on Trainworks with some trailers, which I must admit I'm interested in, so I'm looking out for them. And more importantly, the flat cars that will come with them, because as far as I know, I collect Burlington and Rio Grande as my two main roads, and as far as I know, they're the first Burlington flat cars that have been announced. Okay, then we've got Fox Valley with a GVO, a Thurn tank cars, boxcars, Blueport shops, who are forever announcing hopper cars. They've just about, I'm surprised anybody else bothers to make hopper cars now. Blue Ford have brought out so many. So, and that's about it. Now, where have we got to? So, we shall be done with that. Now, what didn't come up there is, here we go. This is the March releases of microtrains. Now we'll just click on there and go to the second site for this, because there we go, we get more better detail. So we've got a Heinz car, some poster series, an OBS car, and a heavyweight horse car, well cars, standard box cars, troop sleepers, drop bottom gons, and now we get on to stuff which actually isn't new. It's been previously been announced, but the runner packs. Let's put it another way. The individual items announced each month are announced on the last day of the month before. So 28th of February they were announced. They will be in stock around about the 10th of the month following. In other words, in this case, the 10th of March. So if you're with N-Scale Supply and you order it on the first day of the month, then you're secured, because he can make sure that he places an order to cover his advance reservations. Otherwise, you go on one of the other sites and you take your chances that they'll have enough stock to cover their requirements, but you'll have to be quicker. With the runner packs, it can be 3 to 6 months before they arrive from announcement. So it's a lot harder to track them, and probably if you want them, it's probably best to order them in advance with N-Scale Supply. That way you can guarantee that you'll get them. So then we've got these SW1500s, which are made by Lifelike and have Microtrains bodies on them, and some more runner packs. That's a new runner pack of Rio Grande cars. They're the ones previously released, but now you've got 5 of them coming as a single box. Some interest in this impact car is quite interesting. Well worth having a look at. It's quite different. And then these PFE cars have been were announced some time ago, but I've never seen a 16. There's 16 cars in the runner pack. The first one is standard. The second one, the more expensive, $319 one, they're weathered, and that's the difference between the two. By the way, I forgot to mention N-Scale Supply's pricing is pretty sharp. There are a couple of there's probably only one other outfit that's a bit cheaper, so his pricing is sharp as well as pre-ordering. So there we go. We've covered Microtrains releases for March 2018, as well as N-Scale Supply. I'll just jump in here to let you know that at the very end of this video podcast will be my email address. If you want to send me any comments directly, please do so. I prefer that to public comments on YouTube, unless of course they're good ones. There'll also be the website addresses for the 3 model train shops that we're visiting, and a couple of other websites for Australian and American N-Scale convention and associations. So if you just either wait or go to the very end of the podcast, you'll find the links to those websites. Thank you. Bye. To the next model railway site. Now these guys are called Model Train Stuff, which is their business name. Their incorporated name is MB Klein. They claim to have been in business as a hobby shop for over 100 years, which makes them pretty old. They're based in just north of Baltimore, which is a little bit north of Washington DC, for those of you unfamiliar with US geography. They, without a doubt, this is the best website, model railway website on the internet, and this is by far the best source for product in stock. No good for advance orders, they don't take them. You need to go to N-Scale Supply for pre-orders. But for orders that are in stock, this site has probably the best prices I've been able to find. I haven't found anybody that's cheaper. Some people are the same. N-Scale Supply can be the same price, but nobody cheaper. Their shipping policies are wonderful, and their shipping rates are very reasonable, and the website has lots of information. Now, they've only recently introduced this website. The old one, I reckon, was better, except that it ground to a halt and was so slow that I couldn't even demonstrate it to you on this iPad. So they had to move to the new site. Apparently they moved a bit earlier than they wanted to because of the slowness of the old site, and so there's still a few bugs, or features that are not quite as good as the old site. However, let me take you through it. Okay, so we'll click on Shop Now, and that will take us into the product area. Now, the first thing you need to do, and you've got to do it in the right sequence, you need to change the items per page from 24 to 192. 24 is totally inadequate for this site. Now, you need to do that before you do the filters, because otherwise you'll end up having to do it all over again. Now we go to show filters, and as you can see, we have N-scale. Now, that's the only filter at this stage that's worth bothering with. We can come back to brands later. Why there's an option for price leaves me dead. I've no idea what use that might be. There are a number of other things that I really wish they would include. One being whether the product is in stock, so that you can exclude out of stock items, and secondly, whether the locomotive is DCC fitted, or whether it's just standard DC. I'd really like to see those two features, but anyway, this is what we've got. So we go to hide filters, and now we have N-scale. So now this is on this first page is 192 products of their newest items in stock. So as they get a new item in stock, they add them. Now they can add just one. Some days there's none at all. Other days I've known 60 or more be added in a day. It just depends on how they come in. It's not necessarily to do with whether they're new or not. It's when they're in stock. So in other words, if they get a restock, that they come in here. You do have to be careful though, because sometimes they'll go and change a quantity of an existing item, but they won't show it as a new item coming in. So you can. I bought a locomotive a while back, and I bought the last one, but I've since seen that item with a stock item of one on it again. So obviously they've either found another one, or they've got another one into stock, and they've just changed the quantities. Now, as you see here, it's got the number of items in stock. Now, to me, this is absolutely vital. One of the most annoying things is to order product and discover that your dealer doesn't have the product. So these guys say that they've got it in stock, and if they've got it in stock, they'll ship it. And they seem to be accurate. I've ordered quite often when there's only been one, and it's shipped. Only once have they told me that there was a mix-up, and that was a road name mix-up. They still had the product, the one, in stock, but it turned out to be a slightly different road. It was a road number. It wasn't even a road name difference. It was just the number. So it didn't bother me at all. Right, so just looking through this site, we've got, they've obviously got a couple of microtrains items. Now, this isn't the February stuff. This is being done on the 7th of March. The February microtrains will be on this site round about the 10th when they come into stock. And they get some pretty reasonable quantities, as you can see, 27 switches and 55 hoppers. So, they get some reasonable quantities. If they don't have reasonable quantities, it's probably because they couldn't buy them. Microtrains release these stuff that isn't part of their monthlies ad hoc, and obviously these have come in. And then we've got some Atlas stuff. Now I'm not going to dwell on a lot of this, but as you can see, these are Atlas 50-foot cars, which there's quite a few of them, and we'll go a bit faster through them. Then we've got some gondolas and what have you, so we're still mainly on Atlas. You see why we do the 192 items. You know, if it was only 24, we'd be paging by now. So now then we get on to locomotives. Now the locomotives, because they add products as they receive them, sometimes these things are all over the place, and the locomotives at the moment are definitely all over the place. As you can see, this is a Rio Grande in DC only. Now there must be a DCC version of this, but it obviously hasn't arrived yet. Or it might have arrived and it'd be buried further down. We'll come back to that as an option later, but in this instance I know it hasn't arrived, so it's going to arrive. As you see, they haven't got a lot of stock of the locomotives. You know, they've had these for a few days, so they may well have sold quite a few. But then if you look to the left, Winchester and Western, they've got a DCC decoder equipped one, so they are coming, but they seem to be all over the place. So you know, we'll go on through. Now when you want to order something, you simply click on it and you'll get taken to another page, and the amount of information that's shown can vary. It's often not a lot. Sometimes it's just a couple of lines, sometimes it's a lot. They take it from the manufacturer's comments, so there's not a lot of information they add themselves. But if you want more information on these things, you're better off going back to the manufacturer's website. So this chassis item, it's come through. Sometimes there's reviews, although with so many of these items going out of stock so quickly, they ask me to do reviews from time to time, and I very seldom do them because there's not much point if the item's going to be out of stock tomorrow. So anyway, they've got 5 of these left, and this is where you do your quantity that you want, and you go add to cart. Product spotlight, well, they've got some work to do there, because there's certainly no point spotlighting HO locomotives for somebody who's obviously buying an N-scale locomotive. Okay, now when you go back, you just click the back button, and sometimes it doesn't work, and it didn't work this time. As you see, we've gone straight back to the beginning with HO and 24 to page, so we've lost all that filtering, which is annoying. Sometimes you'll get the filtering, but often as not you won't. So just be aware of that. It's just a nuisance. Presumably it's a bug that they're working on. However, we've gone back here, so I'll just show you a bit on filtering. Now, I'm interested in Atlas locomotives at the moment, so we'll use that as an example. And I'm also interested in DCC Atlas. So the way to start filtering that is, first of all, we need to go back to trains. You see at the top there, it's got home trains, shop all trains. But if you click on trains, it will actually go back to, there we go, trains. And then you have the option of filtering out locomotives, freight cars, passenger cars, intermodal parts, etc. Now the old website had all that and more, so it was wonderful, and it was much easier to get at than this is. But anyway, it's there. So we're interested in Atlas locomotives, so we go shop now. So that will at least get rid of all the freight cars. Now once again we need to do the 192 first. Alright, and then we go to the filters. Now we do the N scale filter. Now this diesel, electric, etc. at the top is information only. There's not, you can't click on one of them as a filter, which is unfortunate. Now if we go down to brands, now this is one good feature. Atlas have these 3 different names. Stuff comes in as Atlas. Right, it also comes in as Atlas Master Line, and it comes in as Atlas Trainman, and I've seen stuff come in as Atlas Classic. But as you can see, I've been able to select all 3 of those manufacturers, which is good. It means you won't lose anything. So we can now hide our filters, and now we should just have N-scale Atlas locomotives, which we have. Now the next filtering you have to do manually. If you're probably aware, but if not, if you hit Control and F, or if you're on a Mac or an iPad, Command and F, you'll get a filter. And I'm looking for DCC, so I'm going to key in DCC, and that tells me I've got 40 matches. And I can now go through and look at each one of the DCCs and see whether I can find what I'm looking for. Now that kind of saves you a bit of time and a bit of brain matter quickly going through them. But be aware that in their wisdom, some are DCC equipped and some are NCE equipped. So we have to, after we've done the DCC filter, we have to put in NCE, and we find we've got 29 matches of that. And as you see, the DCC is not mentioned at all, only NCE. So you have to be a bit clever there. Anyway, that's whoops. Go back to, I've lost it. We'll find it again in a minute. Here we are, locomotives, right. So that's the website. As I say, the prices are sharp. You can see $124 reduced to $83 for a standard DC, and for the DCCs $154 reduced to $103. So that's pretty sharp. They've got the stock quantities, so you know they've got the product. They will ship by, if you're outside of the US, they will ship by first class mail. Now I ordered 2 Atlas GP7s a couple of days ago, and they've shipped them first class for $10.80 shipping fee, which is unbelievably cheap. In fact, it would cost me more probably to have bought those 2 items from Melbourne, and it's costing the same to buy them from the States. So, I'll give or take the exchange rate, of course. So their freight rates are really tremendous, and their pricing's good, and they ship within a couple of days. Generally, I find ship time to Australia is 21 days. It doesn't matter whether it's priority or first class, it's 21 days they get here. Probably if you live in Sydney and Melbourne, it'd be quicker. In fact, it would be up to 5 days quicker than up to Townsville. Really, I think that's all I can tell you about model train stuff. I certainly strongly recommend the site and the site for new product, because whilst it doesn't tell you advanced product, it gives you a really good idea of what is available. But you have to be quick, because stuff sells out very quickly these days. Anyway, that's the end of this segment. Thank you. Right, on to the third and last of our recommended model shops. Now this one's called Hatton's, and this one is in Liverpool in the United Kingdom. Now before you all rush to go and do something else, you need to be aware that Pico track is made in the UK and can be purchased from Hatton's, amongst others, and they will ship anywhere in the world. So from an international shipping point of view, this site is not only relevant to Australia, but it's also relevant to those of you in the United States. It's easy to import, and Pico track imported from Hatton's is probably close to, I don't know, at least 30, 40, 50% cheaper than what you'll pay in the US for it. These guys have really good shipping rates, and as far as I can work out, they're the cheapest supplier of Pico products in the United Kingdom. So we'll just have a quick look at their Pico range. Once again, we sort of need to click on N scale. Then we get all their products. Now, it's not the most wonderful of websites, but you need to go up through masses of product until you get to track, and you need to be aware that Pico have products under set track. That's their line of fixed radius products. Then Streamline is what we're interested in, and they've also got track accessories, etc. So finding all of the Pico stuff can be a little challenging, and you may have to go and click on a number of these items. It's not so much getting the main track, it's things like rail joiners, etc., which are and pins are in different places. All right, so we'll just there we go. So here's the track. Now they will ship full lengths of track. That's concrete, but the wood ones are somewhere. I haven't bought any for a while. £3 for one, or £64 for 25 for a box of 25 1 yard lengths. Now, the United Kingdom has a thing called VAT, value-added tax, and value-added tax is exempt for all exports. So it's 20% of the net price, but the quick calculation is 16.66% of £64 is value-added tax. So if you just grab your calculator quickly and go 64 by 666% minus £53, that product will cost you. So you need to go and do your calculation with the US price. It will cost a little bit more for postage on lengths of track, because the post office in the UK, in its wisdom, decided that there was a restriction on the length, and so Hatton's have to send by courier. But the rates are still very reasonable, but probably not so good for one pack. The last time I bought rail, I bought 4 packs, and that worked out quite cheap. But of more importance than track, which you may decide is easier to buy locally, is turnouts. Now turnouts are between £9.50 and £10.50, less 16.66%, and here they are. Now, they have a stock system where they've either got more than 10 or they tell you the specific number, which is great unless you want a lot more than 10. So I ordered 13 of something the other day, and so they were only able to ship 10 of them because that's all they had in stock, and had to have the other three when they were restocked. But that's all the Pico stuff. As I say, if you want rail joiners and pins and stuff, you'll have to hunt around a bit. I don't want to waste everybody's time looking for it. You'll find it. Now, the other thing to know about Hattons is new stock, but this basically applies to those of you who are interested in British outline. Now, if you're interested in British outline, go to new releases. They have some really good filters here. We've got Engage. You can filter by manufacturer, and you can filter by the number of days since since they last stocked this product. So if you go 14 days, it will list all of the products that they've received in the last 14 days, and it will list it by date. And as you can see, it's a heck of a lot. So, excuse me. How much interest these products are, as I say, to those of you who are not British outline, is questionable, but they're there nevertheless. At a later date, we'll have a podcast on another British store, which is particularly useful if you want to import Faller kits, because Faller kits, which are made in Germany, are once again a lot cheaper if you import them from the UK than if you buy them from Model Train Stuff or any other American supplier. So that's our quick little British segment, and so we will call it a day. And there ends the first video podcast for what's new and neat in N-scale. How often I produce these will depend on a number of factors, not least of all how many likes and subscribers I get for the channel. If I don't get many, I may never do it again. If you find the information that I've given you today useful and you want more, please click the like and subscribe. If you don't, well, click the dislike. Don't subscribe. Assuming that we do number 2, we will start going through N-scale manufacturers' websites. I wanted to start you off with the sources of purchase, because you obviously don't want to pay full retail prices from the manufacturers. But there's lots more information on manufacturers' websites than there are on the retailers' websites. So we will cover them in the next and subsequent versions of what's new and neat in N-scale. And on that note, I'll leave you to it. Thank you for watching. Once again, I hope you found it useful. Thank you. Goodbye.
In 1842 I left the old world for the new, bad cess to the luck that brought me through to work upon the railroad. To work upon the railroad. In 1843 'twas then I met sweet Biddy McGee, an elegant wife she's been to me while working on the railroad. In 1845 I thought myself more dead than alive. I thought myself more dead than alive while working on the railroad. In 1847, sweet Biddy McGee, she went to heaven. If she left one kid, she left 11 to work upon the railroad.